Today we're going to make salves, and I have a couple of really old salves that I have collected over the years. This is a really old mutton suet salve. We're not going to be making a mutton suet salve, but it's cool, a cool old salve, and it's actually really in here, and they put it in this jar. It's very old. I'm sure it's at least 100 years old, but it's cool to look at and neat to see old things like that. Here's another salve. That's an old salve, and you can get salves in health food stores and things like that, different salves, but you might as well make your own. They're cheaper and they're usually much, much better than what you can get. A lot of people will make aromatherapy salves where they're putting essential oils into a salve, and it's not really an herbal salve like I'm going to show you how to make. We really want to extract components of the herbs into the salve so they work very well. So first thing we need is a crock pot. Now, I love the little teeny crock pots that you can get, and I use those a lot, but oftentimes they're full. And this is a crock pot that you can get in any store. Oftentimes the crock pots only have the off, low, and high, and you will probably burn your salve if you have that, and I've burnt many salves. The salves can burn and heat up, and it's the chlorophyll actually in the salve that burns and makes that burn happen. So you would really want to keep it on warm setting, and we'll talk about that. We're going to keep it on warm setting, but warm doesn't always get it as strong. And so sometimes when I know I'm going to be watching it for a few hours, I'll turn it up to low for a few hours and then turn it back down, but make sure that I'm stirring it, because the salve components will sink to the bottom, and the bottom part kind of burns. So with the temperature, you never would want to turn it up to high or medium. You would want it to go from warm to low and then back to warm again. You never want to put it up to high, because it really does burn the ingredients and burns the components. And you really want to keep as many of the nutrients in it as possible, any of the components in it, because it is used topically. So let's get some herbs here. We've got some plantain and some comfrey here, and you can use comfrey leaf or comfrey root. This is plantain. Plantain is known as nature's band-aid. Anytime you have an owie, plantain is one of those herbs that you reach for. And anytime anything needs to get better, plantain is one of those great soothing herbs. This is comfrey. We've talked a lot about comfrey. Comfrey is illegal in the U.S. to sell for internal use, and we are going to make an external salve. It is great, and the root of comfrey is terrific when heated up and used. We're going to start out by making a heated oil. I've showed you how to make a fresh component oil where it's live or raw oil. This is going to be a heated oil, and then we're actually going to turn it solidify it into a salve and show you how to do that. So let's start with our plantain. When you make salves, remember that the salves are 4 part of the liquid you're using, the oil, and 1 part of the powdered herb. If you're using cut herb to make salve, then you use a little bit more of the cut herb, double the amount of cut herb. But we're using powder, so we're using 4 parts of the oil, which is our extra virgin olive oil is what we're using, and 1 part of the comfrey plantain mixed together. So the powder has to total 1 part compared to 4 parts, and it doesn't matter what size your part is. Your part can be 1 cup or 1 tablespoon. You can make as much or as little as you want. It's kind of like a recipe, so you have to think about this not as being so technical. It is 4 parts liquid to 1 part powder combined. So I'm gonna take out some plantain, and I'm just gonna do a 1/2 cup of the plantain and then a 1/2 cup of the comfrey. There we go. And then we'll put this over here. Sorry. See how strong I am. Get these lids off. Okay. So this is beautiful, beautiful comfrey root. And I'm just going to add another 1/2 cup, up to a cup. So I'm going to put that in my crock pot. Now we have our herbs in there. We're going to take the olive oil, and we need 4 times that amount. So we need 4 cups of olive oil. So I've got 4 cups of the olive oil and 1 cup of the mixture of herbs. So let me take this, let you guys look at this. You're just going to mix it up and just keep mixing it until it saturates and it becomes very, very thick. Let me take this out of here and let you guys look at this. See what's happening here. You see that? You're just making mud pies. I used to love to make mud pies when I was a kid, playing in the mud. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn this on low right away because we're going to watch it for a couple hours and then we're going to turn it on warm. But if you're not going to watch it, make sure that you keep it on low. And we keep it on low for 3 days or 13 days or 20 days or however long you want to keep your salve going. It will get really, really dark. Usually 3 days, you have a really great salve after 3 days. So this in here. Make sure that you've rinsed all your utensils with that food grade hydrogen peroxide because you want to make sure that all the effort you're putting into these really great salves, you don't want them to go bad on you. Okay, here it is. You do not have to worry about heating these herbs. These herbs, we usually are aware of heating herbs when we're ingesting them. Some herbs are great to heat and really great for ingesting them, but there are different components. Like the Chinese use some herbs they heat and some herbs they don't. Some roots they heat and get one particular reaction in the body, and other ones a different reaction. We are heating this because we're not looking to keep the enzymes in this. We need to be able to keep it, we want to be able to extract as much out of it, and the heat does that. And roots are really a little bit hard to extract without having heat. A lot of great components come out when you're using roots and heating, and especially for salves. So it doesn't matter, you can heat this up. We're not trying to keep the enzymes, we're trying to just extract as much as we can of the properties to put on topically. So we're going to set this aside, make sure it's turned on warm, and let it go. I already have a finished one. I used a small pot so you could see the difference. So this salve, I used comfrey leaf. You can see how green it is. It's comfrey leaf and plantain, and I left it a little bit warm because I like to strain it when it's warm because it seems to work better and not to be as gummy. So what I use to make the salve and finish up the salve is a stainless steel colander and a stainless steel bowl washed with food grade hydrogen peroxide, and then I use one of my cloths that I've already rinsed, this unbleached muslin, and I will put it in here, and what I'm doing is just making a little bowl so that I can gather it up and squeeze. But the salve gets really hard on the bottom, and so the raw herb gets really hard on the bottom, so I have been stirring it every day. So you need to make sure and stir your salve 2 or 3 times a day. But when you're ready to strain it, I like to just let it sit for a day or 2 and get really hard on the bottom, so it's easier to just strain the liquid out. Just look at how beautiful and dark that is. Sometimes I'll just dump it all in and just leave that bottom part to squeeze out later on. I'm still going to come back to this. But for now, I'm just going to do the easy part. And sometimes I'll just let it sit, or if I'm in a hurry. Now make sure when you're doing this you squeeze the top really, really tight, otherwise it will get up in your face and get all over you, like it has happened to me many, many times. I know that surprises each of you. So I'm just twisting this top part and leaving my hand here because it's just pushing all of the goodness out of the fiber of these plants. It's releasing. We're begging, we're pleading for the plant to release its nutrients in. Okay, so this is all that liquid. Isn't that beautiful? It's just beautiful. So we are going to take this warm it up, add some beeswax to it, and make salve. But first, we need to look at what's in here. There was only a little bit of that in there, of the fiber, and it's kind of sticky and gummy and gums up these cloths. And some people wash out these cloths a lot and other people just throw them away, so it's up to you. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put this liquid in another container so that I can have more room to really work with this other. Okay, so let me pour this into here. And we will come back to this later on. Sometimes I have strained it through a stainless steel mesh strainer, kind of like, let's see, like this one. But with salves, you still get a lot of grit out of this. And so you definitely, I really recommend you using a cloth, even though it is probably one of the most messy things that you will do. So what we're going to do is we're going to take that same piece of cloth in there, and we're going to take a spoon that we've sterilized, and we're going to take out all this lovely goodness at the bottom. You see that? How black that is. Those herbs are not black when we put them in there. They shift and change and release their colors, and they are heated into a different type of thing that actually works wonders. This is just, these, you can look in tons of old books. Salves are made so many different ways. The turn of the 18th century, they used petroleum jelly. They would just extract herbs or add extracts of herbs to petroleum jelly. I don't like to use that because it's actually a component that I don't think is good for the body. So I actually like to use that extra virgin olive oil, or even some other, you can use other oils if you love other oils. So here we are. So normally I would scrape every bit out of this, take the time to scrape every bit out of it, because I think, which I know actually, is that lots of wonderful goodness lurks in this black gold. When you squeeze this out, it is so much stronger than the stuff that you squeeze out before and just strained off. And most companies who do it commercially just use the strained stuff because this is kind of hard to do and messy. So it's not that hard to do. It's just kind of messy, I guess. If I have a big, strong guys around the house, I will sometimes have them come and squish my oils because they're so, look how black that is. Is that gorgeous? Just know you're just getting so much out. And one of the ways that I've learned to do it when I don't have anybody stronger than me at the house is I will just push on it and push on it. I have a friend who she has a stainless steel bowl that fits just inside her colander, and then she'll put bricks inside the stainless steel bowl up against this. She'll put the bricks in there and let it weight down. But if you keep working it and working it, it takes sometimes a while, and you know you're finished when you don't get any more oil out. So keep squeezing it. Look at, we're still getting oil. You keep squeezing it and squeezing it. You can watch your favorite TV show. You can watch your class while you're doing this. You can watch your herb class. Now you can make salves out of anything. Almost any herb. Slippery elm makes a great salve. Myrrh and golden seal. Oh, we love that one. We'll be showing you how to make myrrh and golden seal. And one of my friends who has 5 boys, they were all into baseball, and they were always getting skinned up really badly. And so they started testing a chemical salve that's on the market, that's prescription and not prescription, on one side of the body. And then they used the golden seal myrrh salve on the opposite side. And they found that the golden seal myrrh actually healed up faster than the chemical on the body. And one of their sons became allergic to that chemical. So it was nice that they had an alternative. So here you go. Just keep, you can see it just drips every bit, and it's just so darn black. It's just black gold. So you keep squeezing it. I'd probably let this sit for a little bit and come back and squeeze it again, but let's look at what's in here. Now, this is beautiful. I spilled some of my pulp in here. So that's what it is. It's just pulp. Black, beautiful pulp. And people just throw it away or put it in their mulch pile. But that is the pulp that you wouldn't want to put topically because it's not comfortable. Now, I spilled some in there, but hopefully that won't get in there. Okay, here's all the dark stuff that we got out of this wonderful, wonderful herb that we have. And what I did was I took some of the dark stuff that I took the time to squeeze out and put it in this jar. And then over here is the liquid that was just sitting on top of the salve. And you can't really see it, but if you hold it up to the light, I cannot see through this one, but I can see light through this one. Really cool. This means this one is so much darker and has so much more into it and has extracted more of the stuff we took time to squeeze out. So I'm going to dump this goodness in here. And we're going to finish making our salve. Now this would be considered a comfrey plantain oil. So you could just use this just by itself topically, but we want to make a solid salve, kind of like this. This is a little salve that I made before. It's in a plastic jar. Don't love putting them in plastic jars, but I like to be able to put salves in little jars because you can use them up and everybody's dirty little fingers get in them. So I like using little teeny jars. But first, so what we need to do to make it in this salve consistency where it can be put on a wound when it's not so oily and drippy and everything, is we're going to put beeswax in it. So I have some beautiful beeswax. This is unbleached beeswax, and the bleached beeswax is white, and some old recipes call for paraffin wax, but I like to use beeswax. It smells wonderful, it's beautiful, and these happen to be in 1 ounce sticks, which is perfect for what we want to do. Usually they come in big blocks and you kind of have to guess. Where we live, we are in a warmer environment, and so we use more beeswax here than you would use maybe in Minnesota where it might be colder. We use 8 ounces of liquid, of the extracted liquid, to 1 ounce of beeswax. These little sticks here are 1 ounce. So I am going to take 8 ounces or 1 cup of this beautiful oil, and I'm going to add it back. So for every cup, I'm going to add one of these 1 ounce things of beeswax. You can see everything gets underneath your nails, and when you're working with this, usually I will chunk off pieces of beeswax like this, just so that I can break it up so that it melts faster. Now I'm turning my crock pot on on high right now because I'm watching it, but I also want to heat this beeswax, but I only want to heat it just enough so that it will dissolve in there so that it can go through and solidify. Now the difference between using an oil on a wound or something and using a salve is salves that have beeswax in them tend to lock in the moisture and lock in the nutrients, which is really great unless you have an open wound. If you have an open wound that has pus or hasn't healed over, or it's a brand new wound, you don't want to put a salve on it. You would put an oil on it, or you would put a poultice on it, which we will be making later on, or a compressed. The salve would be after the body kind of healed over and you can see that it's starting to heal itself. That's when you use a salve, or you use a salve that you might have put menthol in for your chest or for any owies. I'm not making all of this salve right now. Normally I would just put the whole amount back in and make the whole amount of salve, but for now I'm just going to melt and make 8 ounces of it, of the salve, and you can see the beeswax gets smaller and smaller and just melts, and you just have to just keep stirring it until it melts in. Okay, we've been stirring this for about 10 minutes and the beeswax is almost melted. You can do this on a stove, but use a double boiler so that the flames or the heating element is not directly on the bottom of the pan. So I'm just letting the last little bit of this melt, and what I do is I take an empty jar that's been cleaned out. Your salve will last longer if you clean it out with hydrogen peroxide. So when all of the beeswax is melted, I will take a little bit and put it in here and stick it in the refrigerator and see how firm it gets. You can see that it's a salve, not an oil now, because it sticks to the side of the jar or the bottle. So here's some of the salve solidified. I took a little bit of it and put it in the refrigerator just to tighten it up really fast. You can see how beautiful that salve is, and that's about the right consistency that you would want. So that is really good to go. What I do is I just take the salve after I have melted everything. So you want to shut off your crock pot. And here's the liquid with the melted beeswax. I'm going to pour it into a glass container with a spout on it because you want to be able to pour this into your jars that you've prepared ahead of time, because this will set up really fast in this jar. And what I usually do is just set up a whole bunch of jars. This is an old cosmetic jar that's glass, and I just cleaned it out, and it's a great one to recycle and use. And then I will pick up these little jars at thrift stores or anything to recycle jars to be able to use. You can put your salve in a larger jar, but then I usually will warm it up on the stove or in a microwave to make it into smaller jars, because in my household I have a lot of sticky, icky fingers, and so I don't want their icky fingers in the salve every time they use it, so I usually give everybody their own individual salve. I'm kind of funny that way. So you just let this sit, it solidifies, turns into a solid, and you have your salve. Beautiful, beautiful salve that will last a long, long time. Like a jar of salve will get pushed back in the back of my herb cabinet, and gosh, heavens knows how old it is because the label is so old. Sometimes if I want these to solidify, like I'm making a whole bunch of them for gifts, I'll put them on a cookie sheet and then just line them all up and then put them in my refrigerator or my freezer to make them solid before I put the lid on, because they get a really pretty top on them when you don't touch them and just let them sit, and they look really great, really wonderful for gifts. So that's how we make comfrey and plantain salve. Beautiful salve that we use daily in our house, and you guys will love it. I just know it.